يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، ومكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Islamic Education Level 4 and the diseases by the heart, that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure us from all diseases in the heart and to make us among those who are steadfast upon the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this heart to be purified, it's a mandatory thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade Jannah from any impurities whatsoever. And as the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, which means do not disgrace me in the day of resurrection, the day where no wealth or offspring will avail the person, except the one that comes in the day of judgment with a sound heart. So this is a must, and that's why it's knowledge, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave us without wahi, revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us how to purify our hearts and how to avoid these diseases, and if a person has it, how to take the means and the remedies for the cure for it. One of these diseases done by the heart is being argumentative, being in dispute. Al-jidal wal-mira in the Arabic language, which is one of the diseases in the heart because it has other things attached to it. Sometimes it's arrogance. A person doesn't want to be defeated whatsoever, so he's always argumentative. And he's want to either argue with falsehood or with the truth. It doesn't matter as long as he is victorious. Versus those who argue with al-batil or falsehood, wal-'adhu billah. And the early generations of Islam used to dislike that so much because you have wahi from Allah. And mainly when it comes to the disputes with matters of the religion, you have revelation from Allah, Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If that is presented and explained, and if people have misunderstanding, then it's to be clarified. Once the matter is like this, what else is needed? There's no such a thing as a reason versus reason. We have wahi revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why this al-jidal, or being argumentative, being in state of dispute and looking at the words of your opponent to try to defeat him. The concern is not the truth, but the concern is who's going to win. And this is where, again, it's a disease done by the heart. And therefore, there are certain types or categories of al-jidal, or categories of arguments and disputes. Some of it might be something good, something that is recommended. If a person, for example, is expressing the truth, calling people to the truth, giving da'wah, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the deen of Islam. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the believers, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي أَحْسَنُ, argue with them with matters of goodness, with leniency, with gentleness, with goodness. And the point of it is to express the truth. And the hearts might be covered with all kinds of doubts and falsehood. So to remove that with the words of Allah, with the proper way of understanding, this is something that can be very benefiting. Actually, this is the ways of the Prophets ﷺ. They would do that in a good way. But what's condemned is if someone would argue with falsehood. And this is one of the ways of the disbelievers. But to make one's heart to show the falsehood, a person is upon something that is wrong, and he would definitely find all kinds of means to belittle the truth, and one of which is to divert people from the proper arguments of things as the ways of the disbelievers, as it's mentioned in the Quran. So pushing away the truth, making arguments without knowledge whatsoever. And this is one of the ways, as we said, of the disbelievers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the disbelievers, وَيُجَادِلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِالْبَاطِلِ لِيُدْحِضُوا بِهِ الْحَقَّ. That those who disbelieve, they argue with the falsehood. They are not upon the truth. So arrogance and other things, they don't want to accept the truth, so they will try to oppose this with falsehood, to push away the haqq or the truth. So that shows the ways of the disbelievers, and we are commanded to stay away from the ways of the disbelievers. And when a person has the haqq, then his concern is to show the haqq. And that's why either a person would make jidal or arguments without knowledge whatsoever, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَيَتَّبِعُ كُلَّ شَيْطَانٍ مَرِيدٍ. From among the people, those who argue about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without knowledge, and they follow every shaitan, so it's based on ignorance. This is something in the human beings. If you get someone that has no knowledge about something whatsoever, and you would find them sometimes arguing, like children would argue. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also addressed the people of the book saying, ها أنتم هؤلاء حاججتم فيما لكم به علم فلما تحاجون فيما ليس لكم به علم والله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون. When they argued about Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, why you argue in a matter that you have no knowledge of? So a person has to have the knowledge, otherwise it becomes a condemned way of arguments and disputes and things like this. So this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained in the Quran. And sometimes, even if a person has the truth, and to argue, to show the truth, it might be in some situations, in some circumstances, it's something to be condemned. As the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, من ترك الجدال هو محق. أنا زعيم بيت في ربض الجنة لمن ترك الجدال وهو محق. I guarantee a house in the outskirts of Jannah for the one that leaves arguments, even if he's correct. So that means someone wants to express the truth. His intentions is sincere for the sake of Allah. But the opponent is refusing, he's not listening. And the matter become clearly explained, then, and if a person doesn't find any benefit in it, then to leave it for the sake of Allah. And it's difficult to leave it because you know that you're right. So you left it for the sake of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a house in Jannah. Or a person would abstain from arguments in Hajj, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade the people in Hajj. فَمَنْ فَرَضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجَّ فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. No jidal in the Hajj, unless it's for a benefit, enjoining good, forbidding evil, teaching someone something of matters of Hajj and things like this. Then this is something that is recommended, and it's good for a person to do. So this is the issue of being argumentative, and the early generations of Islam used to dislike that so much, especially with the people of bid'ah, the people of innovations, the people, those who followed their desires, and this is what they want from you, so that they degrade you and take you away from adopting the wahy, the revelation from Allah, to just arguments based on His reason versus your reason. And then where is the wahy in this whole thing? And that's how the messengers of Allah, they conveyed the people the message and invited them to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to worship none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and conveyed the message and the revelation from Allah. We'll continue inshallah ta'ala with more of the subject, but next time if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا راغبا في كل علم نافع
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية زاد
أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، ومكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.